Okay. I have not seen anybody contacting me for questions ex oratorio. So I give the floor to the second opponent, please.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dean, colleagues of the committee, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mbaga. Is that the right pronunciation? Mbaga.
Yes.
Good.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. This is the map you showed us previously. It's a map of the country. And I have to tell you, I've been there once, but it's many years ago, and I visited Dar es Salaam with the Swedish colleagues and giving a course. It's called SIDA, the Swedish International Development Agency. They gave a course outside Dar es Salaam. And it so happened that that was held in a very plush resort. And it so happened that I fell asleep by the pool. And when I woke up, my purse was gone, my passport was gone, my money was gone. So the hotel owner had to take me to the Norwegian embassy in Dar. And I was told there that they issue about 50 new passports every year, which is one every week. So I felt I was in good company at the time. You showed us that the Kilimanjaro area is up here somewhere, is it? Okay. And that is a tertiary delivery hospital up there. So now I've been to 2 of the 4 tertiary hospitals in Tanzania. The one in Dar, Muhimbili, yes, and the one in Moshi. So 2 more. Like to say in American football, 2nd down and 2 to go. And I enjoyed the stay very much. And I also have some fond memories of that visit, in addition to the one with the passport. This is Kilimanjaro, and I guess this is that the KCMC?
Yes.
This is also the KCMC.
Yes.
This is a tree that you showed parts of in your own presentation. Can you tell me in Swahili what you call that tree? And where was this picture taken? You know the name of that tree? I've been told that it's called a flame tree. Is that true? Maybe, maybe not. But the picture is taken in Moshi.
Yes.
Hmm. Have you seen that man? Have you met that man? Do you know who he is? His name was Per Bergström. He's a very close colleague of several of ours, and I think he was the most prominent academic in Norwegian obstetrics at his time. And he has been to Tanzania several
He
times.
started the bed registry.
Excuse me?
He started the bed registry at KCMC.
Yeah, exactly.
Turn on your microphone. It's on?
It's gone.
Okay.
He died in 2010. And I also have to tell you that I appeared in this very lecture hall with him 2007 in a similar situation like we are now. He was first opponent and I was second opponent for a Norwegian candidate at the time. He has written a very, very nice commentary in the Norwegian Medical Journal. It says, 3 days in another world. If you read Norwegian, I'd be happy to give you the original once we finish today. So you can take it back and study some Norwegian and show your friends. It says, tropical communication. I sit by myself on the terrace with a cup of tea and philosophy in the tropical night. That's the opening phrase, published in 2002. It's also a picture of these people, Maasai shepherds. And my first question, Are these part of your study population? Is that a sample of your study population?
Some of them are included in the study population.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are one of the people who are coming to the Liberty system.
Okay.
Yeah, although not many.
I must confess I have some troubles distinguishing between the genders. Who are the males and who are the females on this picture? I can't actually tell.
In this picture,
Huh?
yeah, it seems that they are all males.
All males.
Yeah.
Okay.
The youngest one
Mm-hmm.
is a male,
Mm.
but in younger age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not this other one. Yeah.
No, so they're not part of your study population, and if all, these are all men.
Yes.
I can understand that. I have, for some reasons, several months or 4 months ago, I encountered members of that study population, but from a different part of the world. And I must say it was the first opponent that kind of led me into contact with these people. They are Nenets, they live on the northern shores of Russia. And one of the nice things about the study that was part of another thesis was that they checked for physical activity. And in the questionnaire there was this question about what kind of physical activity, and one was gardening. Light gardening, medium, or heavy gardening. So my concern was, where is the garden? Is this the regular life they lead, or is it something else? No, I haven't. No, I've been to Dar, but I haven't been to Russia. Do you know this man? He's a countryman of yours. He's the first author of reference number 128. His name is Hussein Kidatkidantov, yes. And he works at the Muhimbili National Hospital, and I met him in a similar situation like this.
Yes.
I had the pleasure of being his opponent in 2009 in Umeå. You know where Umeå is? It's in the it's the northernmost university in Sweden. It's not as far north as Tromsø, but it's the northernmost university in Sweden. And he was there as a PhD student, and under similar circumstances as you are here in Norway. And it was a very pleasant. But in Sweden they only have one opponent. So I was what they call the faculty opponent. This is the title of his thesis: Improving Quality of Perinatal Care Through Clinical Audit. Are you familiar with this thesis? Are you familiar with the results of his thesis?
Yeah, I'm familiar with his papers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah, it was the clinical audit was very elegantly done and very elegantly presented and very elegantly interpreted. The audit panel were two senior white males and one not so senior African female. And the main outcome of this audit was that the African female, not so very senior, she was less critical to the present situation or the current situation in this tertiary hospital, but she was much more clever and much more creative in her suggestions for improvement. So I think that was one of the most elegant aspects of it, but I'm not quite sure whether the candidate was aware of what I was hinting at the time. Now for your study. Pregnancy and perinatal health outcomes in northern, you say Tanzania?
Yes.
Yeah, I used to say Tanzania, but I'm incorrect there. It's a registry-based study, and we have to deal a little bit about the design, the methods, but mostly on what you call the sources of error. Would you repeat once again what is the basic design of your study, your PhD work. It's a registry-based study, but what is it in terms of the standard epidemiological designs?
Yeah, it was a registry-based study.
Mm.
It was a kind of historical,
Mm-hmm.
study.
But except for that, is it prospective, retrospective, is it cohort, is it case design, is it cross-sectional? What kind of design would you classify it?
I would have classified this as
They cannot hear, maybe.
maybe something
Can you move that over to the...
Try to hold it closer to your mouth.
Which one? This?
Yeah. So it does work.
I think this way. Yeah. Is it okay?
It just needs to be 1 centimeter from your lips.
Very close there.
Very-
Well, this one is extremely nice.
Yeah.
I'm coming through, I guess.
Yeah.
So what kind of design would you classify it?
Yeah, I would have classified it as a not as a prospective start
Hmm?
because we are not following it,
Hmm.
but we were taking
Yeah.
from backward history.
Well, it's a series of transactional registrations, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it is. And my first question is also, you cover the entire period between 2000 and 2010.
Yes, okay.
Is there any possibility that there is a time trend in your results, that there are changes over the course of the years?
Yeah,
So
it may
that's-
be. Yeah, it may be possible
Mm.
that there may be a change in some causes of death.
Mm.
However, when I looked at the perinatal mortality as overall, actually there was no much change in time trends because it was looking like not much change.
Mm. So if you put it out or split it into two,
Yeah.
they would be kind of the same results throughout.
Yes, because when I did it for perinatal mortality as overall,
Mm.
and as for stillbirth and for neonatal mortality, it was looking with similar
Mm.
shapes. But I didn't look at individually for the cause specific of death. But for the neonatal mortality, yes, I looked for the individual cause specific of death,
Mm.
which also didn't show much changes
Mm.
within the time. Yeah.
But at some point in the first paper, you have the referrals and the non-referrals.
Yes.
Was there a difference in the proportions of referrals and non-referrals throughout that period?
Yeah, in the first paper actually, I excluded the medical referrals,
Mm.
but I did later the analysis just to look what are the characteristics of the medical referred,
Mm.
which I found that the medical referred actually has a higher risk
Mm.
of their babies
Yeah.
being transferred and even of the complications.
Mm.
That's why I thought it's much better maybe not to
Mm.
include them. Yeah.
What about the methods? You have described them in your presentation before this defense. What were the methods you used?
Yeah.
Shortly.
Mm.
Statistical methods, analytical methods, descriptive methods.
Yeah, analytical methods which I used for analysis, I used the generalized linear model during the analysis.
Mhm.
Yeah, to look for the just for the confounders and some intermediate factors which were mediated with newborn transfer.
Mhm. Okay, so you used multivariable analysis,
Yes.
bivariate analysis.
I used the bivariate analysis,
Mhm.
and later on I used the multivariate analysis,
Mhm.
which I did it in different 3 steps model.
Mhm.
Yeah, depending on the time of I was thinking the risk might have occurred. That means pre-pregnancy, I did there was a first model,
Mhm.
and then I combined them with pregnancy and labor related conditions as the second mode. And the third mode, I added the newborn factors. Yeah, as the last mode to see what factors were really associated with newborn transfer.
There you have the sources of error that you have reported. They were confounding and information bias on the one hand regarding internal validity and selection bias. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Can you describe what are the, in general terms, what are the characteristics and what are the effects of a sort of what is a confounder?
Yeah, a confounder is a factor which is having a relation with an outcome, as well as a relation with exposure, but is not an intermediate factor.
Yeah. I think the main issue is that's not an intermediary factor. It's a separate risk factor and it's associated with the exposure on the study. Is that right?
Yes.
And what are the effects?
Yeah, the effects of a confounder, it might cause the increasing or association, or it might cause the decrease in association. Yeah, it might impair the outcome of the...
It distorts.
Distorts, yeah.
In what direction? Upwards or downwards or any direction?
Yeah.
How does it distort? Does it increase your measure of association, say the odds ratio, relative risk, or does it decrease, or does it do anything to your...
It distorts the result that it might decrease the measure of association.
And increase.
Yeah.
So it may distort it in any direction, actually. And how do you normally deal with confounders? How do you handle them? How do you manage them? How do you get rid of the effects?
Yes, with the confounder, we can start dealing them from the study design. Yeah, by looking at which factor may be confounders from our study. And we can do some, maybe during the analysis step, we can do stratifications.
Stratification, yes.
Yes, in different groups, so that to see which factors are really related in which group more.
Exactly, yeah.
And also we can control them by using multivariate analysis.
Multivariate analysis, yes, yeah. You control or you adjust, but there's one.
You adjust.
Yeah. There's one more. There's one more way. You can match for them.
Yes, and matching. Yes.
So it's matching, stratification, and controlling or adjustments. Yeah. Which is the most frequently used, do you think?
Yeah, the most frequently used actually is the multivariate analysis. The second most is stratification.
Yeah, because in my opinion, stratification is the one you can it's most pedagogical. I mean, you can see what happens when you look at the different strata and see what the distortions in both directions that may occur when you look at separate strata. Were there any established, so-called well-known or potential confounders of any significance in your own study, you think?
Actually, before the data collection or the design, there are, I say, most factors which were thought to be associated with maybe with the any risk factors within perinatal are the ones which were collected, but during the design stage, there was no special consideration that which one will be dealing with it, what really kind of an outcome. So for that case, I think there was some potential confounders which we thought during our study specifically And that's why we decided even to, for the paper one, to exclude
Yeah.
the medical referred
Yeah.
and even the multiple birth.
Mm.
Yeah, because we thought that this might have some kind of increased risk
Mm.
and act some as even confounders in our end result, which we act because of their this. So we excluded
Yeah.
these groups, and during analysis
Mm.
is when then we decide to do adjustment
Yeah.
by multivariate analysis.
But what happens when you exclude subjects from your study? You introduce some selection.
Yeah, selection bias.
Yes. We'll come back to that. But I would mention parity, age,
Yeah.
previous pregnancy history and outcome, and also, as we just mentioned, referral or as opposed to non-referral. So you have a lot of potential confounders here that you may have to consider and think about during the analysis.
Yeah. Age and parity actually. we didn't
Age and
consider that.
parity.
Yeah.
Mostly, and previous untoward or negative birth outcome. If you had a preterm birth before, your increased risk. If you have a preeclampsia before or eclampsia, there is an increased risk. So you have to take a lot of previous pregnancies and previous pregnancy outcomes into consideration, and think that what may influence the association between the exposure on the one hand and the outcome on the other. So you have to, do you think you managed your confounders well?
What I can say, and I did acknowledge it,
Mm.
that there are some confounders which might have not yet been collected in our data, and or some confounders which you might have failed to adjust for. Example is what we have just talked about, the previous history
Yeah,
of
exactly.
poor prenatal outcomes, because we didn't consider it.
You showed a number of relative risks. You had two slides with relative risks,
Yeah.
both adjusted and unadjusted. But the unadjusted were more or less like bivariate presentations between the separate exposure and the outcomes. But when you adjust for a number, you may have quite significant changes in your measure of association, the relative risk. Now the other source is the information bias, and I've split it up into misclassification and loss to follow-up. And what is information bias actually?
Yeah.
Or
Information.
excuse me, what is misclassification? What if you have a simple 2x2 table here, and you have the exposed, the unexposed, the diseased, and the non-diseased.
Yeah, for this like 2x2 table, the information bias, what may happen is that during the data collection or the questionnaire interview, some of the maybe exposed people may not give real information related to the exposure, which later on may distort the end outcome, the association, or even some people who are non-exposed, depending on how the question was asked or interviewed, they might give information which may lead us later classify them as exposed.
They may not tell the truth.
Yeah, they may not tell the truth.
And the other term of information bias is often called the recall bias.
Yes.
They recall wrongly or incorrectly.
Especially for this case, I can say maybe recall bias. For those with maybe poor pregnancy outcome, may tend even to remember very poor other things which would be asked and relate with their outcome and give more information about compared to those with maybe good outcome. They might not concentrate much in giving some.
And the data collector may present them with leading questions.
Yes, that is true. I really acknowledge it. That's
So
why
it's, I mean, so recall bias is one thing, but information bias induced by the interviewer may also be a
problem.
problem.
Yes.
What about loss to follow up? What does that mean?
lost follow-up.
That,
About the follow-up.
yeah.
Yes, about the follow-up, what I said is that some of the patients who were discharged from the hospital, just after delivery, we didn't follow them up, except the first 24 hours. So for the first 7 days, we don't know what has happened within the community. They might have lost their children because of any other complications or problems. If they did not return at KCMC, then we had lost them, we missed them.
Yeah.
But very few returned with their babies to neonatal care unit for admission. This one were actually included in the thesis with the major cause being infection. Yeah.
Because these mothers, how long do they stay in hospital after birth?
They stay like 24 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah, after birth. And to come back, actually, it will also depend with where the mother came from or how far she is from the hospital. Otherwise, if she's living far, she might go to the nearby health facility. And if death occurs in even admitted to some area, we don't get feedback.
She leaves with a healthy baby, and the baby dies at 3 days of age.
Yeah.
And it may happen that you won't get to know about that.
Yes, that's one of the shortcomings.
If we look at what's called differential and non-differential misclassification,
Yeah.
you know what I mean about that? Yeah. What is the most serious one, the differential or the non-differential?
Yeah, actually, the differential misclassification, it's take the two groups as actually differently, and so it may tend to overestimate, may overestimate or may underestimate. It depends with the reported outcome. Yeah, and the non-differential misclassification, it means that maybe the shortcomings are equally in both groups.
Okay. The other term is random and non-random misclassification.
Yeah.
If the misclassification is random, it doesn't mean as much as if it's non-random, because that's the risk for the differential, the random and non-random, is that the random misclassification will attenuate your measure of association. It will kind of attenuate it towards the null value.
Yeah.
Whereas the differential misclassification can distort your measure of association in any direction, both up and down, and it could also happen to be correct. Okay. Now about the external validity, selection bias, sampling procedures. How do you describe your study populations? It has been touched upon by the first opponent as well. What was your study population in papers 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, the study population actually was hospital-based deliveries. Yeah, within a specific hospital, SMC. Yeah, so it was women who delivered at KSMC and their newborns. Yeah.
So would you say that the study population was the same as the target population in this case?
Yeah, in this case, actually, study population, it was not the same with the target population.
Target population is the ones you have in your web register, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, how would you describe your background population? It has been touched upon, as I said. So the catchment area of KCMC. What is the catchment area of KCMC?
Yeah,
It's a tertiary hospital. It's one of 4 tertiary hospitals in the country. So what is the overall catchment area?
Yeah, what is supposed to be for the KCMC is supposed to be to cover the northern part of Tanzania.
Covering how many people?
Yeah, which is covering nearly 11 million people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how many births per year? You have about 3,500 births in your annual
About actually 3,500
Yeah.
in our hospital specifically.
Annually.
Yeah.
How many births are there overall in this population of 11 million?
Yeah, in this population, I can say about the Kilimanjaro region by itself, it's more than 10,000 beds.
In the
Yeah,
vicinity.
the-
Okay,
yeah.
so you miss one. You miss 2/3.
Yes.
It's just about the same as the first opponent alluded to. And then, given this sampling, how would you assess overall the generalizability of your findings?
Yeah.
How representative were they?
Yes, generalizability here, I think it might be not well presented,
No?
since the only 1/3 of women were studied, and actually not all women are delivered in hospital facilities.
No?
This we acknowledge as a problem. So this finding may be generalized more for the health facilities.
Exactly, and that's what you say in your thesis. It's comparable with the deliveries that take place in the 3 other tertiary hospitals in your country. Yeah. So again, where are those you didn't catch, and what were their situation? And as the committee said, the selection seems unavoidable, as it affected both selection to hospital birth and referrals of women before delivery. And also home deliveries account for a large number of births, and neonates at KCMC with non-medical referral were included.
Yes.
So you have some challenges, but it doesn't stand in the way of a very nicely done research that you've done. These are the sources of error, but I ask, is there anything missing here? Is there a source of error you didn't mention? Do you know this man? He's also dead. His name is Francis, like the new Pope, His Holiness. But he's got a different hat. But he is a famous singer, is Frank Sinatra, you know of him? It's a singer, an American singer. He's ill fame, I'd say. This is one of his songs from a television show on Norwegian television in the 70s. Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. This I tell you, brother, you can't have one without the other. So they're more or less like Siamese twins. And these are the Siamese twins of population health research. If you substitute love and marriage with epidemiology and biostatistics, you have something. You can't have one without the other. So I would say that the one source of error that you haven't mentioned is the rule of chance.
Yes, true.
The rule of chance. I mean, it's inevitable. So we have confounding, information, selection, and rule of chance.
Yes,
Now, this is a commercial. A very good friend and colleague of mine, he was actually my advisor some years ago. He is going to publish a book in June of this year. And in front of these witnesses, I should try to get you one copy when it is published. It's a very, very nice book, and I know because I read it already. I've even produced something called a blurb. Do you know what a blurb is? B-L-U-R-D? B-L-U-R-D. A blurb. You don't know what a blurb is? Well, if you have written a book and you want your friends, colleagues to write a totally biased, short sentence that will ignite people to buy the book,
yes.
that's a blurb. So I was invited to write a blurb on that book. And it's a very nice thing, and it relates. I mean, the title says risk, chance, and causation, and chance has a very prominent place in that book. And one chapter is very fascinating. It's called Celebrity Triumphs Science, and it's well worth reading. Now, we touched on this as well already. What were your main analytical methods? They were descriptive, they were comparative, they were etiological, and you mostly by variable analysis, but you also use the multivariable analysis to control for your confounders. Now, there's a tendency within biostatistics, and in particular in epidemiology, to say that what? P-values are out. P-values are out. And in particular the term NS, which means exactly, they're out. So you don't do that anymore. But we have these three concepts or terms: hypothesis testing, p-values, and confidence intervals. Are you in favor of hypothesis testing? Statisticians are, but these days epidemiologists are about to move a little away from hypothesis testing. And what do they rely on if they don't rely on the p-values and the hypothesis testing? They rely on
confidence intervals.
Exactly. So my question: where were the confidence intervals in your presentation? You had a number of relative risks, no confidence intervals. What is a confidence interval?
Yeah, the confidence interval actually gives us where the point estimate lies between from the minimum and the maximum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the popular way, but there's another way. I learned that as well, because when I went to course in Minnesota in 1984, we were trained to say that the confidence interval is you look at the bounds and say that the true value we set is lying between the low, but that's not the true definition, but we should look up the true definition. But let's assume you have the following hazard ratio, and it's 0.13, and the confidence limits are 0.08 and 0.21. How would you interpret that in terms of a p-value?
Yeah, in terms of the p-values, it's going to be interpreted as
So the popular way is to say that you have a statistically significant difference. But I checked with my close by colleague, and he would say, based on these confidence intervals, he would say it's very unlikely that a hazard ratio like that is very unlikely. But I tried to tease him and say, how unlikely? But he wouldn't go into that.